As the rumble of anticipation echoes like an earthquake across the globe, many a fan, expert and betting agency have been calculating predictions for the last 4 years. Using historic data and perhaps even voodoo tactics, being able to forecast who would win the Rugby World Cup is something we love to do. From an octopus predicting the winner of the 2010 FIFA World Cup to the use of artificial intelligence for the Super Bowl, humanity has no shortage of ingenuity when it comes to prophecy. But nothing defies these prophecies quite as much as the Rugby World Cup. Surprises, upsets and exhilarating moments are what make the battle for the Webb Ellis trophy something to truly behold. Who can forget how Japan beat the Springboks, or perhaps Western Samoa upsetting Wales in 1991? The Rugby World Cup is one of the toughest competitions to predict. But today we won't bore you with the numbers. Instead, we look at the teams that could perhaps change the tide of rugby dominance. Teams that will overperform and give us something to talk about for the next 4 years. Trust me, you will be surprised. Let's get the big one out of the way first. If you do a simple internet search on betting odds, the mighty All Blacks will be at the top of the list more often than not. Thanks to an unwavering record, making the semi-finals on 8 of the 9 occasions, who can blame the pundits for backing the men in black? But the recent form of the Maori nation has made it even harder for the most knowledgeable pundit to accurately predict. Narrowly winning the Rugby Championship in 2022 and suffering 2 defeats on home soil to Argentina has shown us that even the strongest armour is fallible. Regardless, the All Blacks have a stacked team, bringing the likes of the Barrett brothers, a living legend in Ardie Savea, and 2-time champion Aaron Smith to the massive showdown. You'd be hard-pressed not to believe that they are the favourites. But this year, other nations might have something to say about this. Perhaps the Springboks. From a shocking loss to Japan in 2015 to a devastating defeat against the All Blacks in the previous World Cup, the Springboks always choose the gravel road. But what's the fun in making it easy? You see, the Springboks are rarely, if ever, the favourites to win the Rugby World Cup, but somehow they always turn up at the right time. Having matched the All Blacks with 3 Webb Ellis Cups in their trophy cabinet, you cannot leave out the current world champs. Locked in what many would call the group of death, Ireland and Scotland could be a real thorn in their side. No one would be surprised to see the Boks drop at least 1 game before clawing their way into the final. Exciting and unpredictable, what else could we say about the reigning world champs? However, are the Wallabies playing possum? Have you ever watched a boxing match where a master tactician dances around the ring, waiting for the perfect opening, before striking like a cobra to land a knockout blow? This is precisely what the Wallabies bring to the table. Backed by arguably one of the best coaches in the world, Australia is a volcano of talent waiting to erupt. Whilst no one can argue that luck has not been on the side of the Wallabies, many die-hard fans would tell you this can change at any moment. A quick look at previous iterations would show you that Australia always manages to make it to the Final 4, finding themselves with one hand on the trophy more often than not. Led by a tough and relentless Michael Hooper and backed by the nearly 300-pound Taniela Tupou, you would be an ignorant fool to bet against the former 2-time Rugby World Cup champs when the curtains fall in Paris. And speaking of Paris, the 2023 Rugby World Cup could not have been better set up for the men in the 3-time silver medalists. Le Bleu have never won the Webb Ellis trophy, but have come close no fewer than 3 times, with their closest defeat coming in 2011, losing by a single point to the host nation, New Zealand. But anyone older than 30 would tell you that France has a way of turning up when it matters. Having knocked out the All Blacks twice at the massive showdown, you would never bet against the 2022 Grand Slam winners. But what France have lacked in previous World Cups seemed to be finally a thing of the past. Under the leadership of Antoine Dupont and 2019 World Cup Rugby Player of the Year, Romain Ntamack, Le Bleu have become less of an underdog and more of a favourite going into the Clash of Champions. And yes, we will be enthralled in the action from the onset when France tries to once again upset the All Blacks as early as the opening game of the tournament. But what about the 2023 Grand Slam winners? Ireland is perhaps the team that always manages to underperform at the World Cup. Having never progressed past the quarterfinals, the Irish are often all hype and no show. However, Ireland finds themselves sitting on top of the world as we enter rugby's tournament of the decade, and perhaps relinquishing that crown is something they are willing to fight for. Grouped with the Springboks and Scotland, the Irish aim to go undefeated during the pool stages and have an easier time going into the knockouts, where France and the All Blacks lie in wait. With the sun setting on the career of an ageing Johnny Sexton, this should be enough encouragement to reach their first final and perhaps even win the coveted Webb Ellis trophy. Should Sexton not be enough motivation, you could always rely on Josh van der Flier to make the ultimate difference. The Leinster and Ireland flanker has been setting the world alight with his combination of skill and ferocious tackling, earning himself the 2022 World Rugby Player of the Year award. We should not forget that Ireland is currently unbeaten, winning and coming off a historic 4th Grand Slam title in the recent Six Nations. But if you've made it this far, you'll be utterly surprised by the teams we picked next. Now, when you think of teams that could lift the Webb Ellis Trophy in Paris, Argentina doesn't come to mind quickly, but bear with us for a second. Argentina finished 3rd the last time the World Cup was hosted in France, knocking off the home nation twice in the same tournament. Los Pumas made it to the semi-finals in 2015 and has seen a resurgence in form over the past 4 years. Having knocked over the All Blacks twice, once on home soil and once in Australia, and sneaking past both the Springboks and the Wallabies on various occasions, Argentina is a team that you underestimate at your peril. Under the leadership of former Wallaby coach Michael Cheika, the South American nation has undergone a massive transformation. The mantle has finally been passed on to younger players like Julian Montoya, who bring a new energy to a side that many would have never given a chance 2 decades prior. If this isn't enough, passion when singing the national anthem is sure to steal the hearts of many faithful supporters and perhaps give these underdogs the support they need to finally reach the pinnacle of rugby in 2023. So, who's left? After a devastating defeat to the Wallabies in what should have seen them reach the semis in 2015, Scotland has been suffering from unpredictable form over the last 8 years. Failing to make it past the pool stages in 2019, the men from Edinburgh can turn the tables on their opposition at any moment and without notice. In recent history, Scotland defeated the likes of England and Wales, managing to finish 3rd in the Six Nations Championship. Their impressive and more consistent form has seen them climb in the world rankings to 5th as of this video, and under the leadership of Gregor Townsend, we might be in for a few upsets. Being locked in the group of death with the Springboks and Ireland, the British nation could perhaps sneak a victory over these favourites to earn their way into the knockout stages. We know many people are hoping for such an upset. With the 234-pound Duan van der Merwe making a name for himself over the last year, earning a stint in the British Lions before causing plenty of headaches for the country of his birth at Murrayfield in 2021. With the 28-year-old in exceptional form and talisman Finn Russell staking claim for the Six Nations Player of the tournament, it seems like Scotland will operate like a well-oiled machine, perhaps breaking the status quo as early as their first match against an injury-ravaged Springbok team. But another team could cause some ripples in Pool B. Lifting the trophy might still be a far cry from the Pacific island nation of Tonga, but nothing is impossible, given a few controversial squad upgrades. Bolstering the 2023 Tongan team, the likes of Malachi Fekitoa, Charles Piutau and George Moala would be a nightmare for opposition defenders. Throw Israel Folau into the mix and even the All Blacks might consider this one of their toughest games ever if they make it out of the pool stages. This will certainly be one of the toughest years for Tonga, as making it through Group B will never be an easy task. However, progression to the knockout stages would mean others will take note and perhaps see a new superpower rising in the Southern Hemisphere. But stealing the hearts of fans is a given for these underdogs. But wait, another world champion is lurking in the shadows. By now, I'm sure the comments section is probably teeming with biased hate. How dare we forget the 2003 world champions? Since losing the 2019 Rugby World Cup final in Japan, it's been a tough time for the former champs. Aside from winning the Six Nations in 2020, this English team have struggled to find their form. 2022 showed brief periods of resurgence as the Lions recovered from defeat to draw with the All Blacks in a gruelling end-of-year tour. With Owen Farrell perhaps seeking out one last chance to stake a claim at the Webb Ellis Trophy, a new hero in Marcus Smith might emerge to become the next Johnny Wilkinson and bring the most coveted prize back to the British crown. Finding themselves in an easier Group D could prove a tough testing ground to help the Lions regain their form before dealing with more ferocious opponents in the knockout stages. However, everyone should be wary of the Samurai Nation, observing, waiting to pounce at the slightest scent of blood. After losing to the All Blacks by more than 100 points in 1995, Japan has been trying to raise its profile in the world of rugby. It didn't happen overnight, but the Asian nation has slowly been gaining traction and causing the occasional upset. If you're a Springboks supporter, the mere thought of Japan would bring back memories of the unthinkable, a last-minute try that would give the Brave Blossoms their most iconic victory over a top-tier rugby nation. This was followed up by upsetting Ireland and Scotland in 2019 at their own home World Cup and seeing them through to the knockout stages for the very first time. With a wary English side and perhaps a little stutter in form from Los Pumas, we could see another shock yet from the Cherry Blossoms, and perhaps they would finally get a chance to fight for the most important prize in world rugby. But as we count down the days to the opening game in Paris, who do you think will cause a surprise at the 10th edition of the Rugby World Cup? Will England find their form? Could the Irish finally live up to the hype? Or will the old guard reign supreme, creating a comfortable nest for the Webb Ellis trophy in the Southern Hemisphere? Do you think Wales should be in this list after their stellar performance against England? Let us know in the comments and make sure to like and subscribe so you can stay updated with the Rugby World Cup.